I pursued Lucian for 5 years, loving him with all my life. On the night I was called to pick him up, I got into a car accident. Meanwhile, he was embracing his new favorite little wildcat, toasting with his disreputable friends, using me as the stake in their bet. I did not appear the entire night, and it was only when the hospital called that he truly panicked. After the car accident, I remembered everything except for Lucian. However, the usually cold and indifferent Lucian cried and begged me. "Grace, please, do not stop loving me." What he did not know was that I had long stopped loving him. I pursued Lucian for 5 years, during which the women by his side changed one after another. Old Master Henry could no longer sit still and issued a strict order to Lucian. I was the one who accompanied Lucian the longest. Of course, it was in the awkward role of a childhood sweetheart. To put it nicely, a childhood sweetheart, to put it bluntly, a nanny. Lucian had always known I liked him. I was obedient, sensible, and presentable in appearance, so he chose to propose to me. In the noisy and chaotic KTV, Lucian impatiently hung up the call from old Master Henry, beckoning me like summoning a pet. There were no flowers, no grand and solemn ceremony, only a ring that would not fit on my finger. Lucian did not even ask if I was willing to marry him, he just grinned cheekily. "Grace, you know my old man is annoyingly persistent, help a buddy out, will you?" The Sang family had shown me kindness. Moreover, I had liked Lucian for 5 years. Why not marry him? I nodded. Amid the jeering from Lucian's group of friends, he forcefully slipped the ring onto my ring finger. The ring was truly too small, constricting my knuckle painfully. "It hurts." Lucian did not even glance at me, saying impatiently. "So pretentious, if you had not gained weight recently, how could it not fit?" Lucian's words elicited a burst of laughter, with the group scrutinizing me and pointing fingers. They essentially echoed Lucian, calling me fat, an orphan, a pitiful creature dependent on the Sang family. I lowered my head to look at my distinctly knuckled hand and smiled self-mockingly. How was I fat? It was simply that Lucian did not love me. I do not know why, but while I could usually endure it, at that moment I suddenly did not want to. I flung the ring onto a wine bottle, instantly splashing wine foam, and slammed the door as I left. Perhaps feeling that he had lost face, Lucian chased after me and grabbed my wrist. "Grace, I have already agreed to marry you, what more are you fussing about?" See, once a sensible person shows the slightest resistance, it is considered making a fuss. I felt very tired and was about to say I was not fussing. A woman dressed provocatively and seductively shouted in surprise. "Lucian!" I recognized this woman. Her name was Cherry, Lucian's ex-girlfriend, the one who had once splashed beer on me relying on Lucian's favoritism. Lucian had long grown tired of her, so he treated her coldly. Having lost face with Lucian, Cherry directed her output at me. "Yo, look who this is? Isn't this the little nanny from the Sang family? You even followed here." I withdrew my wrist, ignoring Cherry's provocation, and said indifferently. "So it's Miss Cherry, you and Lucian take your time chatting, I'll leave first." Just as Lucian was about to call me back, he was entangled by Cherry. I walked out of the KTV's main door. The street was bustling with people, but behind me, there was no one. "Grace, why can't you give up on him? Are you still holding on to that promise?" With these questions, I fell into a drowsy sleep. Late at night, the light turned on. Lucian, drunk and staggering, confined me between his arms. "Why did you leave earlier? You know clearly that Cherry means nothing to me." I stared into his eyes, hazy from alcohol, and said word by word. "Because I do not want to humiliate myself anymore." Lucian suddenly thought of something, his eyes instantly clearing up. He straightened his body, tossing the jewelry box with a somewhat annoyed motion. "TSK, Grace, why are you so vindictive? Isn't it just the ring you want? Here, take it. Stop fussing." Lucian was indeed Lucian, every sentence could precisely pierce my heart. The ring rolled out of the jewelry box onto me, the diamond sparkling. I did not put it on but silently placed it back into the box. Lucian had never felt so frustrated with me before, he warned me. Grace, playing hard to get once or twice is enough. We have to go back to see the old man tomorrow, do not cause any trouble for me. I silently wiped the moisture from the corner of my eye and compliantly put on the ring. Okay. Early in the morning, Lucian dragged me along, speeding to the Sang family ancestral home. I get carsick, and having not eaten breakfast that morning, my complexion looked terrible upon arrival at the Sang family ancestral home. Even old Master Henry, wearing his presbyopic glasses, noticed it, but ironically, Lucian did not. Old Master Henry glanced at Lucian and then at me, sighing slightly and gently patting the back of my hand. Grace, you are not unaware of Lucian's situation, you need to be more tolerant. Lucian's ears were sharp, and he immediately became displeased. Grandpa, why do you make it sound like I have some illness? I just had a physical checkup a couple of days ago, and the doctor said I am in great health. Looking at the octogenarian elder before me, I always recalled his affection for me, swallowing all my grievances. Grandpa, rest assured, I understand. During the meal, when old Master Henry learned of our upcoming marriage, his eyes crinkled with smiles as he handed me a card, saying it was for my dowry. Being an orphan, I could not let outsiders look down on me. I could not refuse persistently and had to accept it, a strange feeling crossing my heart. Lucian caught my expression and, as expected, assumed I was vain, immediately averting his eyes in disgust. I opened my mouth to explain something but suddenly felt it was unnecessary. What was there to explain? He did not love me, all explanations were pale and futile. After the meal, Lucian and I were heading back to the apartment when midway, Lucian received a call from a coquettish female voice. Lucian, there's new fun at Cloud 999, see you there. Returning to the apartment was not on the way to Cloud, so Lucian dropped me off at a sparsely populated intersection. His hand casually rested on the steering wheel, the mocking intent in his eyes evident. Didn't Grandpa give you so much money? Take a cab back yourself. With that, he drove off, leaving me in a cloud of exhaust fumes. The area was sparsely populated, forget about hailing a cab, there were hardly any private cars. I took out my phone, the signal was only 1 bar, and the map page kept loading in circles. Turning off the screen, fortunately, I could still find 2 yuan on me. Dragging my sprained ankle, I finally found a bus stop. But after waiting for a long time, no bus came. It was a middle-aged man driving by who, unable to stand by, rolled down his window and told me. Young lady, stop waiting. This bus stop was discontinued long ago. I felt like a camel crushed by the last straw. I did not cry when tormented by Lucian. I did not cry after walking nearly 10 kilometers in high heels. But this kindness from a stranger made me cry. Lucian, why do you treat me worse than a stranger? Seeing this, the man pushed open the car door in a panic. Hey, young lady, don't cry, where do you live? I'll take you home. My daughter is about your age, it's so dangerous for young girls like you to be in this place alone. At that moment, my tears fell like broken pearls. If only I had a father too. I did not return to Lucian's apartment but went to my best friend Nana's house. By the time I arrived, it was already evening. Nana helped apply medicine while scolding me, and after scolding me, she scolded Lucian. The phone, charged and automatically turned on, received a call that interrupted Nana's rant. Seeing it was from Lucian, Nana snatched my phone and decisively answered on speaker. Grace, with Grandpa backing you, you've grown bold, huh? It's so late, where are you fooling around? Nana immediately retorted for me. Hey? Lucian, do you have a heart? Do you know how long it took her to get back to the city after you left her with a sprained ankle? I tell you, Grace is eating and living well here with me. Get as far away as possible and stop pestering our Grace. There was silence on the other end for a while. Nana called out twice, got no response, and hung up. After showering at Nana's place and getting ready for bed, an urgent ringing of the doorbell echoed through the living room. It was Lucian, his right hand clutching a plastic bag full of medicine, leaving no room for argument. Grace, if you don't want Nana to get fired, come back with me. Nana wanted to stop him, but fearing to implicate Nana, I decided to go with him. On the slowly moving road, Lucian and I were silent toward each other until Lucian broke the silence. Grace, let's go select a wedding dress tomorrow. I thought he would scold and humiliate me again, but unexpectedly, Lucian thought of something as trivial as selecting a wedding dress. After all, I had prepared for Lucian not to appear throughout, even at the wedding site. He stared at me for a long time, not noticing the green light, and I slowly uttered one word. Okay. The next day, Lucian somehow obtained a wheelchair and insisted on pushing me to the wedding dress shop. When pushed into the shop, several clerks cast envious and jealous glances at me. Lucian was handsome and the only son of the same family, marrying him was the dream of many girls. I tried on one wedding dress after another, but Lucian was still dissatisfied. Until I wore the strapless fishtail haute couture wedding dress named Devout Heart, a flash of amazement crossed Lucian's eyes. This one. Lucian handed over the card to pay, and I was pushed to the changing room to change clothes. I could not unzip it. As I strained to reach, I lost balance, and the wheelchair toppled. Hearing my exclamation, Lucian rushed in and picked me up. The store manager immediately came out to apologize, and the clerk who deliberately left me alone in the changing room was fired on the spot. Lucian stood up for me, thinking I would be very touched. Little did he know, I had already seen the message on his phone. Lucian, you aren't really returning to family life for Grace, are you? What do you know? This is just to fool the old man. Our wedding date was set for 2 weeks later. Old Master Henry promised him that after marriage, he would relinquish some authority, so recently, Lucian was busy with both wedding matters and company affairs. But he came home on time every day and occasionally brought back small cakes I loved on his way. I did not take it seriously and coped with Lucian daily. Until one day, a text message broke the eerie balance between Lucian and me. I'm pregnant, it's Lucian's. If you don't want this to blow up, 1500 hours, rotating perch, I'll wait for you. It was from Cherry. I checked the time, 14:30, no rush. When I arrived at rotating perch, it was already 5 p.m., Cherry was fidgeting and looking around anxiously. I sipped my coffee and got straight to the point. Say it, how much? Cherry's surgically altered face twisted extraordinarily, and she gritted her teeth. 50 million, I'll abort the child and never appear before you again. I opened my balance and placed the phone in front of her. No 50 million, only 50 yuan, do you want it? Cherry was incredulous, her vase-like head took a while to react. Grace, you're playing me? I took back the phone, my expression indifferent. The child you're carrying isn't mine, if you want money, go find Lucian. I grabbed my bag, preparing to leave, Cherry unwillingly shouted at my back. Grace, do you think you've won? Let me tell you, the small cakes he brings you every day are the leftovers I don't like. Oh, no wonder, I thought the cakes had become less tasty. Back home, Lucian was working on the sofa. I handed him Cherry's ultrasound report. Actually, if you want to keep this child, that's fine too. Lucian tore the report to shreds without even looking, the rage in his eyes nearly enough to burn me alive. He seemed not angry because of Cherry's pregnancy but because of my attitude. He yanked me over. Grace, why have you been acting half-dead lately? I'm already changing, why can't you see it? I almost laughed out loud. His change meant changing to sleeping with Cherry? Lucian, wasn't it you who told me not to fuss and to be sensible? By the way, the perfume scent on your collar is really unpleasant. Also, those cakes are truly hard to eat, don't buy them anymore. I saw Lucian's face pale inch by inch. The matter of Cherry's pregnancy eventually reached old Master Henry, resulting in Lucian being forbidden to step out before the wedding, while Cherry disappeared with the child. On the day Lucian was punished by family law, old Master Henry struck him on the back with his cane, one blow after another. How can you face Grace like this? You will regret it. Unexpectedly, it later became a prophecy. Lucian and my wedding proceeded as scheduled. Wearing Devout Heart, yet having to face Lucian who treated me like grass, how ironic. The wedding officiant followed the script rigidly. Mr. Lucian, do you take Miss Grace as your wife, in poverty or wealth, in health or sickness, until death? Will you stay by her side, love her, and protect her? The entire venue was silent, awaiting Lucian's answer. But he did not respond, just looking at me mockingly, embarrassing me. The guests' gazes, like lasers, fixed on my calm and composed face. Until old Master Henry's cane made a loud thud, Lucian reluctantly answered. I do. The officiant sighed in relief, quickly smoothing things over, and continued to cue me with hopeful eyes. What if I say, I do not? My words caused an uproar among the guests, even Lucian looked stunned. I also looked at Lucian amusedly, appreciating his distorted face from being deflated. All right, just joking with everyone. Only I knew this was not a joke. Unexpectedly, Lucian took it seriously. That night, he fiercely gripped my waist, asking repeatedly. Grace, why don't you want to? Is it to retaliate against me? I admit, you've achieved your goal. The next day, as expected, I slept until the sun was high. Even during lunch, Lucian and my earlobes were still red. After this, Lucian seemed to have truly changed. There were no more women around him. His collar no longer carried unpleasant perfume scents. Even once, after getting drunk, he held me and murmured. Grace, I think I've really fallen in love with you. I was lost in thought. But many years ago, you had already said you loved me. Lucian and I met in childhood. At that time, Lucian's love for me was known to all. But the good times lasted only 3 years. The accidental death of father and mother Singh dealt Lucian a huge blow. Then, he changed. Looking at the sleeping Lucian, it seemed as if nothing had changed. On Monday morning, because my parents' illness might be hereditary, I have routine checkups every 6 months. But the result was that I was pregnant. Originally, I did not want this child. After all, I did not want any entanglement with him after Grandpa Henry's passing. But the doctor said, your uterine lining is very thin. After an abortion, it would be hard to have children again. At that moment, I suddenly felt something move in my lower abdomen, and my heart softened abruptly. Perhaps Lucian should have the right to know. So, I simply took out my phone. Come home early tonight, I have something to tell you. This was the last chance I gave Lucian. Back home, I prepared a large table of dishes. 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock. The dishes had gone completely cold, but Lucian still had not returned. I dialed the familiar number. The first time was a mechanical busy tone. The second time, a woman answered. Hello, are you looking for Lucian? My heart died once again. I calmly hung up and silently dumped all the dishes. The phone rang again. This time it was Lucian, saying he was drunk from socializing and asking me to pick him up. But lies would eventually be exposed. Because the call did not hang up, I heard the entire content of their bet. I did not want to endure any more. I grabbed the keys and the prepared divorce agreement and headed straight to the bar. The divorce agreement could not be handed to Lucian. Because I got into a car accident. Before passing out, many scenes flashed through my mind, but notably without Lucian. Strangely, my soul briefly left my body and floated to Lucian's side. Lucian, why hasn't Grace come yet? It seems after marriage, you're completely under her thumb. Lucian, embracing the newly met little wildcat, looked displeased and called me repeatedly. Responding to him was only the busy tone. After leaving the bar, Lucian heard people discussing. Hey, did you know? There was a car accident at the intersection ahead. I heard it was a pregnant woman. Indeed, I heard blood was everywhere, so pitiful. I nodded solemnly. I was indeed quite pitiful. I thought if Lucian knew I was dying, he would be very happy. Suddenly, I saw Lucian answering a call, his face changing abruptly. I had never seen Lucian so panicked. Arrogant as he was, upon learning of my miscarriage and that I was still in life-threatening danger, he knelt before my hospital bed, nearly collapsing. Grace, I beg you, live, live. I floated in the air. Lucian, those who break promises must be punished. I slept for a long time. When I woke up, I no longer recognized Lucian. I asked him, "Who are you?" This sentence successfully made the man lose composure. He almost stumbled out running. The doctor's conclusion was trauma-induced amnesia from the car accident. It might be recalled, or perhaps never remembered in a lifetime. Thus, he obsessively emphasized that we were a loving and happy couple. "You say I am your wife, then show me a photo of us together?" Amusingly, he searched his entire phone but could not find one. If we are husband and wife, how could there not be even a single photo together? He was unable to refute, speechless. Afterward, Lucian had to face a fact. He remembered everything. And I remembered everyone, except him alone. Just as he had forgotten me back then. Lucian began following me like a lapdog. Wherever I went, he followed, fearing any mishap to me. I tried to drive him away, but he always used our marriage as an excuse. I only found him annoying, very annoying. "Then let's divorce." He was like a child whose toy was taken away, with red-rimmed eyes pinning me against the wall. "Grace, you can make any request, just do not think about divorce." I pushed him away disdainfully. "You're sick." Treating me like a teenage girl, still playing the wall slam. Glancing at Lucian's hurt expression from the corner of my eye, I felt no touch. Even felt like laughing. "Lucian, this is what you deserve." I did have amnesia. However, 3 days after waking, I remembered everything. I began using the amnesia as a pretext to madly retaliate against Lucian. And Lucian let me manipulate him without a word. Could it be that he remembered too? Actually, I am not an orphan. I have parents, and they were close friends of the same family. After my father died from a strange illness, my mother also passed away from depression. It was the same family that adopted me. At that time, Lucian's parents had not yet passed away. Lucian was still the son in my heart. He said, "Grace, you have no family. From now on, I am your family." I rubbed my red, crying eyes. "We have no blood relation, how can you be my family?" He smiled, stunning an entire youthful era. "Wouldn't marrying you do it?" I remembered that smile for a very long time. But everything passed like flowers in a mirror or the moon in water. Lucian witnessed his parents' death, suffering great mental trauma. Grandpa Henry sent him to a psychological counseling hospital for half a year. When he returned, he did not remember me and no longer called me Grace. Because seeing me reminded him that he too had become an orphan, he even blamed all faults on me. "Grace, it's all you, bringing bad luck to the same family." But I could say nothing. The doctor told us not to stimulate him, or he would collapse and develop split personality. At that time, the little girl could only foolishly ask the doll, "Why does Lucian remember everyone but forget me alone?" But at that time, I absolutely did not expect that when Lucian remembered me, we would have reached such a situation. I was discharged. Lucian took me back to the apartment. My gaze fell on the ultrasound report on the coffee table, a stab of pain flashing through. Lucian held my fingertips, trembling slightly. "Grace, we will have children again." "No, we won't." "Never again, Lucian." To help me remember, Lucian took me to one place after another with our memories. Regarding these things he mentioned, it seemed I truly had amnesia. Not that I did not remember, but I did not want to. I really wanted to say, "Lucian, save your effort, you can never wake someone pretending to sleep." Passing that bus stop, I suddenly did not want to entangle with Lucian anymore, even if I was in the superior position. I told Lucian to stop the car and pulled him to the bus stop. I asked him abruptly, "Lucian, do you know this bus stop is abandoned?" Lucian was puzzled, not knowing why I asked, but without waiting for his answer, I continued. "That day, I walked 10 kilometers to get here. A passerby told me it had been abandoned." Do you know what I was thinking? I was thinking, what exactly did I do wrong? Why do you, Lucian, treat me worse than a stranger? Let's divorce, I'm serious. Lucian was silent for a long time. Grace, actually, you've remembered everything, right? I nodded. Actually, not everything, I remembered the bad and forgot the good. Grandpa Henry also learned the full story. He no longer forced me and instead gave me 10% of the shares. He said from now on, I am his biological granddaughter. Grandpa, I will always be your family, just in a different identity. After Grandpa agreed, things became much easier. Lucian and I agreed to meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau on Monday. But on the day to handle the divorce at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Lucian went missing again. How laughable. Before, he played missing to get rid of me. Now, he plays missing so I won't leave him. How despicable. Lucian appeared after 3 days of disappearance, unshaven and bloodshot-eyed. Upon seeing me, he fiercely pulled me into his embrace, utterly humble. Grace, you can make me do anything, please, don't stop loving me. He did not expect my straightforward answer. Okay. Lucian, you said it. I agreed to temporarily not divorce Lucian, but never agreed not to separate. So, I moved out of Lucian's apartment and rented a modest one-bedroom using money from previous part-time jobs. Nana came over to help decorate. Though the house was simple, it was much cozier than the large flat. I thought I would not sleep, but I fell asleep immediately. Because here, I slept peacefully. I had always lived in fear of the same family's kindness to me, which was both warmth and shackles. I decided to start a new life, beginning with finding a job. Lucian and I attended the same university. My grades were even better than his, but after graduation, I became Lucian's nanny. At that time, many HRs regretted that I did not enter the workforce. I mustered the courage to submit resumes to several companies that had shown interest in me before. Soon, I received responses from several companies inviting me for interviews. I went downstairs. Lucian was smoking sullenly in his Porsche. Upon seeing me, his eyes lit up. Grace, I promised not to disturb you, but it's already been a week. Has a week passed already? So time can pass this quickly. Before, when I hoped for Lucian to turn back, I always felt days passed slowly. Lucian originally wanted to drive me, but I refused. However, I took the Porsche keys and splashed him with water and stench. Now, I only want to act according to my heart. Unexpectedly, my interview went smoothly, and I successfully got the dream job offer. Exiting the elevator, someone called me. It was the IC interviewer. Grace, congratulations on finally returning to the workforce. I stared at him for a long time, surprised. Senior? The senior's name was Boris. In university, he and I were in the same team, known as the male and female Juga, winning many awards. Back then, when I gave up work, Boris came to persuade me, but I would not listen at all, and we gradually lost contact. Long time no see, Boris invited me to dinner, during which he subtly inquired about my relationship with Lucian. I said indifferently, "Oh, preparing to divorce." After I said that, Boris's eyes subtly glanced behind me. Then, he took a tissue and intimately wiped the oil from the corner of my mouth. I immediately became alert. "What are you doing?" His starry eyes under the glasses were calm as an ancient well. "I'm just helping you with the divorce." When I drove the Porsche back downstairs, Lucian had been waiting for a long time. Completely without grace, he questioned who that man was earlier. I remained calm. "Just borrowing your Porsche to flirt with a handsome guy, not too much, right?" Lucian's explosive temper was finally restrained. "If punishing me this way makes you happy, I accept it gladly." He paused. "But, Grace, you cannot fall in love with someone else." His words were drowned in the winter's cold wind, scattering with a blow. On the weekend, after finishing Friday's overtime, Nana mysteriously said she had a job entry surprise for me, tricking me to the KTV where there were 10 male models. This was indeed a surprise. I do not know how many months' salary it cost Nana. Thinking I could not waste the money, I had the 10 male models take turns singing. Unfortunately, enemies meet on a narrow road. I went out to take a call and bumped into Lucian's former disreputable friends. Thus, Lucian witnessed me surrounded by 10 male models. Lucian, do you want me to forgive you a little? This sentence completely dispelled his full eyes of anger. I handed a glass of red wine to one of the male models, pointing at Lucian. Pour it on him. The male model recognized Lucian and naturally dared not approach. I raised my eyes to glance at Lucian. Lucian, with a somber face, declared that he would not hold today's matter against him, and only then did the male model close his eyes and pour it over Lucian's head. Watching Lucian's disheveled appearance, I smiled charmingly. The great Lucian, actually begging others to humiliate you, how rare. I clearly saw the evident anger in Lucian's eyes, but he only cautiously asked me. Grace, have you vented your anger? I suddenly lost interest and coldly told him to get lost. Lucian walked out of the private room, dropping the jaws of the group outside. Lucian's humble pursuit of Grace became the laughingstock and topic in that circle. The always face-loving Lucian acted as if unaware. I could not provoke him. Thus, I thought of someone. Someone who made even an arrogant prodigy like Lucian feel ashamed. I called Boris. Hey, how about a deal? That day, arm in arm with Boris, I flung the divorce agreement on Lucian's desk. Sign it, I don't love you anymore. Dragging on is meaningless. Lucian's sharp gaze fell on my arm linked with Boris's. The veins on the back of his hand faintly bulged as he tore the agreement to shreds. I shrugged indifferently. Lucian, then we have to go through legal channels. I left triumphantly, missing Lucian's profound gaze. After work, I just wanted to get home quickly, feeling Lucian would not let it go. Sure enough, in the underground parking lot, I was abducted by Lucian into the Porsche. He began speeding madly. The sports car raced to the suburban mountain roads, the trauma from the car accident making me almost vomit. Lucian, stop quickly. Lucian looked at me in the passenger seat, pale as paper, a flash of heartache crossing, immediately turning to madness. Grace, say you love me. I clenched my teeth, refusing to utter a word. Grace, you forced me. The car went faster and faster. I could only hear the whistling wind rushing past my ears, and the car accident happened. In the last moment of life, Lucian sharply turned the steering wheel toward my direction. In a daze, I saw the young Lucian running toward me, shouting. Grace, Grace. Lucian died. I personally closed his eyes. Lucian, those who betray true feelings must swallow 1,000 needles. Out of gratitude to the Sang family, after discharge, I attended Lucian's funeral. Old Master Henry handed me the household registration book without a word. In just a few days, he seemed to have aged 10 years. I held the household registration book. I smiled. I, Grace, have no divorce, only widowhood. Actually, that day, even without the big truck, Lucian was meant to die. I had tampered with that Porsche, and I was prepared to jump out the window to escape. With his only grandson accidentally deceased, Old Master Henry planned to bring back Cherry's son to raise while he was still able. The burden of finding the child fell on me. But what I brought back was an infant's death certificate. I supported the tottering elder, raising an innocent smile. Grandpa, the Sang family's property was originally stolen from the Gu family. Why don't you consider me? After all, in any case, I am your granddaughter, aren't I? My father did not die from illness but was framed by a trusted uncle, leading to suicide. My mother did not die from depression, she was forced to death. She exchanged her death for my life. I once loved Lucian, that's true, but I also hated him to the bone. His mental illness was induced by me, otherwise, why would Old Master Henry send him to the psychological hospital? Indeed, Old Master Henry was no pushover. After returning, Lucian did seem like a changed person. But Lucian did not accidentally forget me, his memories were sealed by a hypnotist. I checked the information, only in this case would forcibly recalling memories lead to personality split. Over these years, Old Master Henry did not know how much I knew, he guarded against me, and I against him. But my acting was decent, he actually thought I would give up revenge because of Lucian and these small favors. Actually, I had thought of stopping. At the moment the child kicked me. I suddenly did not want my child to become an orphan too. But worldly affairs are always full of mishaps, leaving everyone with regrets. I laid out all the matters. Old Master Henry immediately had a stroke from anger. While he was still conscious, I forced him to sign the adoption agreement. Thus, I became the legitimate and only heir of the Sang family. The next day, the financial world was shaken, with the headline, Sang Corporation's helmsman, due to only grandson's accidental death and severe illness, may be inherited by former daughter-in-law and adopted daughter Grace. While I was peeling an apple for Old Master Henry, the news broadcast it this way. Though his mouth and eyes were crooked, he still had a trace of consciousness, a tear seeping from the corner of his eye. Grandpa, I know you're sad. But rest assured, I will manage Sang Corporation well. I leaned in to whisper. Oh, forgot to tell you, actually, Cherry's son, your grandson, is not dead, but he probably will never know he is a Sang descendant. Even if he knows, he will hate the Sang family. After all, it was you who killed his biological mother. Old Master Henry's lips trembled. He was completely paralyzed from anger, and after rescue, became a vegetable. Meanwhile, the horde of paparazzi outside witnessed my bustling filial piety. I curled my lips. Now, ascending to the position of Sang Corporation's president, the outside world had no objections. And some restless people in the board, after witnessing my abilities and methods, backed off. After taking office, the first challenge I encountered was negotiating a big deal with the Bow family from the capital circle. It was said I was to meet the Bow family's eldest son, the future heir of Bow Corporation. As the chair turned, it was Boris. This was the first time seeing Boris after becoming Sang Corporation's president. Unexpectedly, the dignified eldest young master Bow only had one sentence upon seeing me. Hey, Grace, you can't just use me without taking responsibility. Lucian's perspective. I am Lucian. After death, I did not leave immediately but stayed by Grace's side. In the end, she softened, personally closing my eyes and attending my funeral. Behind the funeral, I learned how much the Sang family owed Grace. I did not know that everything I obtained was built on the corpses of Grace's parents. This was the second time I felt unworthy of her. The first time was when she had the car accident and miscarried. So, watching her anger the old man to death and inherit Sang Corporation, my heart felt endless relief. After all, this was originally what I and the Sang family owed her. If my death could exchange for her happiness and forgiveness, then I think it was worth it. But she still thinks the car accident was just an accident. I love cars so much, how could I not know the engine was tampered with? Since she wanted me dead, I would follow her arrangement and choose to die. However, I slightly modified her plan. This way, she would not risk imprisonment nor feel guilty. After all, my Grace, though fully armed, still has a soft heart. She did not kill my and Cherry's child but gave them a large sum of money and sent them abroad. Half a year after my death, she got together with Boris. Boris loves her more than I did, and they live very happily. Due to her physical condition, they had a child after 3 years of marriage, a cute girl. Their family of 3 is reunited and harmonious. I was dazed. If my and Grace's child was born, wouldn't they be 5 years old now? Wouldn't they be this cute? Could we have been this happy? But there are no ifs in the world. Seeing her so happy, I think it's time for me to go. I'm going to hell to atone for Grace.